Saints Falcons, another rivalry game, divisional game, week one. That's exceedingly interesting to talk about. I think every game week one, of course, is for the Saints offense. Full year again of Jameis Winston, obviously hurt towards ACL. We have Michael Thomas back from his goofy ass injury, whatever that ends up being. Alvin Kamara has been injured. This team has been through a lot of injuries the last few years. Of course, big change at left tackle. Finally moving on from Teron Armstead with James Hurst, and moving on from Sean Payton as your head coach. This is going to be the first game without him. We'll talk about what that's going to look like. For this Falcons defense, a ton of changes on this side of the ball. Thank God for them. One of the worst defenses in football previously. But with the additions they've made this offseason, maybe there's some hope here. Maybe. So let's talk about it, right? Saints offense. How does it work into this Falcons defense? Well, can they run the ball? I always start the run game first. Get it out of the way. Obviously, the less important in the two phases of offense, but it is what it is. So this Saints offensive line is still pretty damn good. Eric McCoy, another guy who's been hurt for a while, is a really good center. He's not quite elite. He still has some play strength issues. Not an incredible athlete getting up and down the field, but absolutely pretty good and can be a positive in the run game consistently. Andres Pete, while he has these issues with really quick guys, which does come up in this game, overall is somebody who moves the line of scrimmage pretty well. Cesar Ruiz, not good enough to be a first-round pick, but not a horrible player in general, and can do a little bit, especially in conjunction with actual good offensive linemen. Ryan Ramczyk, best tackle in football, or him and Dave Bakhtiari, whatever you want to say. Incredibly good, just wins every play all the time. It's amazing. And James Hurst, the guy I mentioned before, who has started games for this team for the last few years, and every time he's been on the field, he's been pretty good. I've had a lot of respect for him for a while. I think he's going to have no problem stepping into the starting role this year, and I am excited about that. This Falcons front seven, though, this team has been just an absolute soft pile of garbage in run defense for like 3 years now. Now, part of that has been by choice based on who they've been employing, and part of it has just been on poor draft decisions and guys not working out. But they did do a lot to fix that this offseason. Now, is that necessarily the right direction in the pass-heavy NFL at this point? We'll see. But against this Saints team specifically, it definitely does help because you go from what they had before, guys like Tyler Davison and linebackers Deion Jones, Foyo Lukun, who I do like both those players a lot, but in the specific aspect of the game, they're clearly weak at times. Two guys who really can stand up. Anthony Rush, big fat nose tackle, something they've lacked for a long time, who can actually play. Taquan Graham, draft pick, who I think did show the ability to be an NFL starter, at least on the field quite a bit, decent player. They bring over Lorenzo Carter from the Giants, who's absolutely a good run player. They drafted Ogundeji in like the second or third round last year. He ended up being decent, started quite a few games. Michael Walker stepping into a starting role, and Rashaan Evans they bring over from the Titans, who has been a good player for a long time, especially in this area. So they're way, way better as a run defense. And into the Saints team, they match up okay. Grady Jarrett specifically is an incredibly good player, and somebody who's beating the shit out of Andres Pete for a long time because he's the exact type of player that Andres Pete just doesn't have the foot speed and lateral agility to keep up with, and he can really consistently make plays, even in the run game where sometimes he can struggle. Now, he will get washed out for sure occasionally. He's not, a dominant player the way that like Aaron Donald is, but nobody is. So he's still really, really useful. And these other guys can actually stand up okay, especially, like I said, on the edges. Lorenzo Carter is an important player in this game because the Falcons will just get absolutely run over most of the time when they play the Saints recently, and Lorenzo Carter does go a long way towards being somebody who will be in his gap on the outside of plays, keep stuff in the middle where Michael Walker or Rashaan Evans can actually react to it. So I don't think the Saints are going to be able to run the ball all that well. Now, their offensive line is good enough that the floor is there, that they can just always run the ball to a point. So I'm not going to go out of my way and say, it's nothing here, but it's not maybe what they've been used to. So then we get to the passing game. Well, what does that look like? It's really interesting because without Sean Payton, we just don't know what the Saints offense is going to look like. It's easy to say, oh, well, it's the same. I mean, it is the same offensive coordinator. Has been there for like 14 years. So it's easy to say everything's going to look the same, but, if he was that incredible, maybe the Saints, there would have been some personnel changes at some point as he's looked at by the organization. Now, there are other reasons behind that, whatever. But the Saints offense outside of Drew Brees hasn't always been that amazing. And listen, Jameis Winston is just bad. He will put up numbers, and everybody knows that he does, that he can by just throwing true jump balls over and over and over again. But there are real reasons why he didn't work out, doesn't win very many games, and why other teams are generally happy to see him line up at quarterback. And this personnel really doesn't fit him very well. Michael Thomas, he is really good when I'm not one of those guys who thinks, oh, he only wins like on slants, that type of bullshit. No. He does do that too, but he consistently wins in the intermediate and short levels of the field. A dominant guy with his hands, just consistently converts offensive positive plays, which is really a lot, just about the best thing you can do as a wide receiver. He is really good. We'll see though, he hasn't played a game in a really long time. And with his injury, I'm not going to go right out and say, oh, he's back to full elite, top 5 receiver, no question. These other guys, Tre'Quan Smith's actually out for this game. Marquez Callaway is not a deep threat receiver at all. Guys were really, really slow. Deontay Hardy, better known as Deontay Harris, changed his name in the offseason, is actually a good offensive weapon and a useful player, but he is undersized, not the type of receiver that Jameis Winston necessarily works great into. And then Chris Olave, he is a first-round rookie. He could be amazing, absolutely. But I don't generally take into account rookies as being positive impacts in their first game. It's rare that they are, even if they end up being really, really good players. So it's hard for me to just say, oh, don't worry about it. You have Chris Olave now. And theoretically, even the type of player he is, I don't know if he's going to win down the field the way that Jameis Winston kind of needs, because Jameis Winston is just incredibly inaccurate. He consistently just misses throws, and while his decision-making maybe isn't as bad as people think, because a lot of his interceptions are just because he misses, like he's literally throwing the ball to the wrong spot, he's not very good at it. So I'm really worried about him, especially into this new Falcons defense. They have Dean Pease as their coordinator, a guy who's run really, really intelligent stuff from Baltimore for a really long time, made up for occasion. At times he had a lot of talent there, at times not so much, was still generally overcoming a lot of things. And specifically, he plays a brand of defense that Jameis Winston just sucks against. He has a lot of guys moving around, switching up coverages, play to play, mixing in and out, guys short going deep, deep going short, that type of stuff. And Jameis Winston he can't handle that mentally most of the time. So I'm actually really worried about his ability to make decisions into this team. And the Falcons secondary is pretty damn good. A.J. Terrell and Casey Hayward are awesome. A.J. Terrell is one of the best corners in the league. Casey Hayward can absolutely still play even at his age. I do have a little bit of question with him in this scheme, actually, but he's still really good. He has really good instincts and can cover people. Mike Ford has been able to play before. I think he maybe should have gotten more of a shot before. Now looks like he's going to be the starting nickel, at least to begin this year. He's not amazing or anything, but he can play. And they're finally weeding out some of these bad safeties that they've had for a while. Richard Grant was okay as a rookie. Jalen Hawkins, I think, can function as a matchup weapon. Dean Marlowe, even a guy who can cover tight ends. Eric Harris is still really, really bad. I hope he doesn't see the field, but whatever. You can't win them all. And the Saints receivers, I just don't, outside of Michael Thomas, if he's fully healthy, I don't see winning consistently into the secondary. So I frankly think the Saints offense is going to struggle in this one. Now, Jameis Winston does create enough variance, and there is enough talent, especially, I need to mention, of course, Alvin Kamara, somebody who does not have somebody who can match up with him on the Falcons defense, and with their ability to run the ball at least reasonably well and him coming out of the backfield, there is offensive talent enough to score on this team. But I don't think it's anything crazy. I have them about 17 to 24 points. Wouldn't surprise me if it goes a little bit under that. Just with Jameis, there is a lot of variance, so I hesitate to say he's only going to score like 10, ever. But while I think this Falcons defense can struggle at times throughout this year, this matchup I actually really, really like them for. So what does it look like on the other side of the ball? Well, we have a new starting quarterback in Marcus Mariota, who coming over from the Raiders as a backup, hasn't started in a couple years now. I'll talk about what I think about him. You have a first-round rookie in Drake London, some new starters along the offensive line. And on defense, this Saints team, another one of these defenses that I've been talking about that has kind of been bleeding talent over the last few years. There's definitely really good players on this defense still, which we'll talk about, but it's not quite what it's been when this defense has carried some less than their reputation would suggest offenses to high finishes in the NFC. So, yeah, can the Falcons run the ball? Actually, maybe. Their tackles are pretty damn good in the run game. Jake Matthews has been underrated for a little bit. He's not amazing or anything, but he's a good athlete who consistently wins down the field. He can move at the line of scrimmage at least a little bit. And Caleb McGarry, for all the issues he can have with specific types of pass rushers, is a crazy good athlete. I think one of the better downfield blockers in the entirety of the league a lot of times. Chris Lindstrom has worked out as a first-round guard after his injuries. He's a really good player, doesn't lose a lot. The other two, that's the question mark. Elijah Wilkinson, I'm scared about. He didn't even have the play strength to survive a tackle. I didn't think when he was on the Broncos or the Bears. And I don't think it's going to get any better at guard, although he is, just a guard, hard to fuck that up that much. And Drew Dahlman played a little bit last year, and I did think he looked okay, but still not somebody I have a ton of faith in. But the Saints, the Saints front, still really good players, but not as deep and as well-rounded as it used to be. Cameron Jordan, still one of the best defensive ends in the league as far as run stoppers go. I mean, the dude is just a beast. He's incredibly strong, doesn't get moved off his spot, makes actual plays. Marcus Davenport is a huge human being who also really hard to move off his spot. David Onyemata, one of the better defensive tackles in the league, consistently wins in a lot of ways. Those guys are all really good. But outside of Cameron Jordan, they're not like infallible. They can get moved by good players, which, like I mentioned, I think the Falcons do have. I do like the way the Falcons scheme the run game. Arthur Smith is pretty good about that. They're not, quite like 49ers level with that or anything, but they're not bad, especially given the talent, the injuries along the offensive line to still produce over the last few years that they have. And the Saints linebackers are, Demario Davis is still really good, but he's really getting up there in age at this point. He is a little bit slower than he has been for a long time. I really like him as a player for sure, but I'm starting to get a little bit worried about it. And Pete Werner, I didn't think was particularly good last year in a small role. Keaton Ellis is really, really whatever player. Zach Bond hasn't worked out as a higher pick, I don't think. Hasn't really shown to be useful in any way. So there are chances for the Falcons to find traction on the ground. I will say that the Saints safeties that they brought in, they hit 2 real big home runs in Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu. Those guys play a lot and play very well near to the line of scrimmage, and I do think they are going to help a lot in this game. But can the Falcons throw the ball? Well, that starts with Marcus Mariota, right? What do I think about Marcus Mariota? He's bad. He's a really hesitant quarterback. He struggles to read defenses. He doesn't really make nearly as many plays with his legs as his reputation would suggest, and his arm strength is kind of horrible. But he has led marginally successful offenses before. The reason is that he is not afraid to get the ball out quickly into positive situations. He's not like an idiot as far as putting the ball into a ton of danger. And he can make enough plays moving outside the pocket that you can't just completely disrespect that aspect of the game. So I don't think they're screwed throwing the ball. And importantly, with the Saints secondary as a pass coverage unit, I think there are holes here. Marshawn Lattimore is really, really good. I like him a lot. He's not quite, he's not the elite tier of corners in the league, but a lot of times he can play really well into even positive, like harder matchups. Paulson Adebo, though, is out this game, so there are starters. Bradley Roby. He has been good before in his career. He hasn't played in a little bit. And I do like him, I will say, but he's not amazing. But more importantly, because of that Paulson Adebo injury, you're looking at P.J. Williams starting this game. I cannot fathom how the dude is still in the NFL at this point. One of the absolute worst coverage players in the last 10 years in the NFL is burned effectively every play he's on the field. And that by itself is easy access to real yardage for the Falcons. When I say that, I mean, it's hard for me to over-exaggerate how bad he is. And in the NFL, when you smell weaknesses like that, I know Arthur Smith is smart enough to see that and is going to attack it. And for as good as I think Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu are, especially Marcus May, I'm a huge fan of him, they aren't incredible pass coverage down the field safeties, especially Tyrann Mathieu. He's more of a matchup weapon in man coverage with tight ends and stuff, but he loses effectiveness the further and further you go back away from the line of scrimmage. He's just a little bit slow, really, at this point in his career. He's a lot of injuries, stuff like that, and didn't used to be the case. But Marcus May actually fairly similar in just that he is a lot better being proactive and attacking the ball, attacking the line of scrimmage, than he is going backwards. So there are chances to attack the Saints here, and while I don't have a ton of respect for any of these receivers individually necessarily, they're all kind of okay. Damiere Byrd, I've actually been a little bit of a fan of. The dude can function as a receiver. Bryan Edwards is pretty whatever, but not useless. Well, I mean, his case is actually pretty damn good. He's really fast. I wouldn't be worried about P.J. Williams on him. And Drake London is a first-round receiver. He could, I'm not going to make any declarations, but it's not like I'm going to assume he's really bad. And then you have Kyle Pitts. Now, Kyle Pitts, I'm actually not crazy about as a player, just because I think he's clearly useful. He's going to be useful for a really long time. He is absolutely one of the better tight ends in the NFL already, all that stuff for sure. But it's not about comparing him to other tight ends. It's about what he actually does on the field. And what he does at this moment, it's really more about just kind of running fast in a straight line and being pretty damn good after the catch and at the catch point. That stuff is all really useful. He's just not quite the separator that I wanted him to be. He doesn't have the lateral agility that I expected maybe from him. That's not to say, again, I just mentioned he's really good and he's useful. I just will say that sometimes scares me, and that actually scares me in this game because I do think Tyrann Mathieu / Marcus May / Mario Davis can do a really good job on him. But with the way that the Falcons scheme stuff with Arthur Smith, like I said, I think is smart. He uses a lot of play action, uses a lot of stuff to make it easier on his quarterbacks. There are chances for the Falcons to move the ball. So I actually have them at 20 to 27 points. That is definitely being optimistic, and going forward, I will tell you very clearly that I will not like the Falcons this much. But in this game, I do like the way that they match up a little bit, and I think they actually have a chance of success. So I actually think the Falcons are going to win this game. They're underdogs at home in the first game of the year, and I don't think their team is that great or anything, but especially more because of the way their defense deals with the Saints, I think they can get some shorter fields, some positive turnovers, and can actually go out and win this game. So betting-wise, yeah, the line is at 5.5 at home. And I like that number. I'm not crazy about it just because I don't think Marcus Mariota is very good. And that does scare me. But, with the new head coach, the Saints roster, I'm not crazy about at this point. I do like the Falcons to win this game and obviously to cover the spread. And then the over-under, I do like over 43. Again, with these crazy divisional games, sometimes you'll get just goofy stuff happening that keeps it way, way down. But I do generally like the over. So I think this game is bettable, absolutely. And like I said, I do think the Falcons are going to win this one. This is my first main upset pick of this week so far. And, I feel pretty damn good about it. So that's Saints-Falcons week 1.